Have you found yourself a little community of actually, have you converted anyone to get on zero?
I don't know if I've personally converted anyone. As far as I know, I talk about this to like my Unchained friends. Some of them think I'm crazy as well. But there definitely is a small little community of you could call them get on zero early adopters. And again, I don't consider us
the zeros.
Yeah,
the zeros.
We need a cool name.
Zero gang.
The Zero Gang. Yeah.
Little Telegram group.
Yeah. No, we do have a little fun group chat.
You do. So there's a group of you.
Yeah, it's a fun group, and we talk about a lot of this stuff, a lot of these strategies about how are you handling this. Like some people use like a line of credit. We're talking about credit cards, right? Some people have a line of credit, so when they have a big expense, they can put it on the line of credit, pay it off later. Some people are like the more samurai extreme, where they're no KYC. I'm going to get my paycheck in dollars. I'm going to go trade it all for cash, like withdraw it as cash, go to an ATM and do all that stuff. Totally fine. I think the basic principle that unites us all is like we don't hold fiat. And then you can, no KYC. Do you want, like, I'm a sucker for seamless experiences. And unfortunately, the seamless experiences require KYC as of today. So I kind of lean in that camp. But
directionally, you're heading.
Bingo. Yeah, absolutely.
So has there been anything where you've come stuck? Any situation you've been like, I'm fucked here?
That's a good question. I don't really think so, aside from like weird technical stuff. Again, just with some of these companies being new and some of these products being so new. But philosophically, I don't think so. And obviously, we can get into some reasons why you might not want to do this. And also, one thing I should be clear about is like, this isn't like a dogmatic thing. It's not like a virtue signaling, like, oh, you're not a Bitcoiner. It's like, we're all going to be fine. Like,
we're all going to make it.
We're all going to make it. Like if you're 50%, 99%, we're all going to be fine. So the last 0.1% isn't going to change your life.
Well, again, talking back to Pomp yesterday, we had a conversation, and the philosophical part of that was, you start and you're like 1%, 5%, whatever, and you end up and you go the full hit, which I've done. But then there gets to a bit where you need to pull back a bit because I've got responsibilities towards children. And when I choose to be entirely Bitcoin, I'm risking part of their inheritance. So I've pulled back just a touch. So I'm not going to give the numbers. I'm still irresponsibly long, but I'm not like 110% anymore. Because of that,
you're a bear. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm a bear.
I'm kidding.
Fucking shitcoiner status. Yeah. But then there are things, there are scenarios. You think about that. You give me the reason why you wouldn't do it, and then I'll run through the logical things if I wanted to, where I think my challenges would be.
Yeah. So I think one reason I thought of pretty recently, actually, I was talking to like a startup founder friend, and a lot of these startups and a lot of these companies are like VC funded, and their expenses are more than their income. Like they don't have a good income statement, right? So in those cases, it's like, yeah, if you got $2 million from a VC and it's like you don't have good income, I could see that like being a problem for a business. If you're a person where your expenses are more than your income, you have other problems to deal with. So as an individual, I see very few scenarios where this wouldn't work, except here's another one I thought of. I'm curious what you think. You're buying a house in 6 months and you need to put a down payment. Fine. It's like, cool. Do it. Hold some fiat. No one's gonna yell at you for that.
This is funny. I bought a fucking house.
Yeah.
And I had to put a down payment. And part of it was I was going to sell a bit of Bitcoin to put towards this. It's a nice house, me and the kids, next step in our life. And at the point, I think it was about 40,000.
It was 40 something, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, and then it dropped. And I was like, fuck, I should have done it. I should have done it then. And and then dropped again. I was like, I should have done it then. And I think it wasn't not a lot of Bitcoin I need to sell, but it was like at 28 was the point I was like, I sold a bit of Bitcoin because I've stacked now since 2017. This last year I stacked harder than I've ever stacked, right? But now it's like, okay, now I want a house. I'm older. I'm nearer death. People die at 43, 44 all the time.
Yeah.
The heart is a delicate thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just go pop. So
my niceness is influencing you, Pete.
Yeah. So like, I don't want to die next year and have all my Bitcoin in unused. I want to have enjoyed this last year.
Yeah.
So I plan to sell like it's a small percentage of my Bitcoin, and eventually 28 I got out. But getting out of that point, I essentially, 40 down to 28. What is that? That's about 25%.
Something like that.
Yeah, about 25% more it cost me. But the thing I'm thinking about more is my football club. If I wanted the same strategy, it's highly irresponsible for a couple of reasons. We get paid at the start of the year by the sponsors. And through that year, we then have to pay our players, our referees, our caterers, all the shit that we run for our club.
Yeah.
We bill an amount in pounds. Most people pay us in pounds. Some pay us in Bitcoin. The people who paid us in Bitcoin, the sponsors we've held, we're down like 60%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But luckily, it's a small amount. If it held it all in Bitcoin, the whole thing would be down 60%. Our trajectory for the next year would be super difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're down. And I can't take that risk yet. I take the small risk with keeping some in Bitcoin, and hopefully that when that bounces back, it bounces back higher. But our expenses are, while they're month to month, we're paid at the start. We're not paid every month.
Yeah. So that's actually another one for businesses. It's not just if your expenses are more than your income, like for a startup. I think it's also if you're even an individual, if you're paid at an irregular basis and you can't really predict, like maybe you're a contractor and you're paid, I don't know, once every 7 months or something crazy like that. That's a great point. And
Yeah, I mean, our costs front loaded at the start of the season. So every month during the season, we know what the payers cost, we know what the catering costs, we know what the refs cost, we know what our streaming costs. But the start of this season, before the season even started, we did a load of work on our ground. We bought a tractor, we put in an irrigation system, we actually paid up front for our streaming, we ordered new kits and merchandise. Like 50% of our cost was at the very start of the season.
yeah. Yeah.
So we have to run our business on pounds, but we are able to operate a Bitcoin wallet and store a certain amount of Bitcoin that it's almost the amount. You know what it is? It's for you, it's the amount you're not going to spend every month becomes your Bitcoin, right?
Yes.
The amount we know we're not going to spend over the next year, we've kept in Bitcoin. And then we can do that.
So that's kind of actually the same thing in some
Kinda.
ways. It's very similar. You're if you're putting it aside, you're kind of spending it in some ways. You're like, I'm going to spend this anyway. It's kind of like the house example. It's like, I know in 6 months I'm putting the down payment, so I'm kind of spending it anyway. I see that as pretty similar. It's almost like a known expense versus just like what a lot of people will do is they'll hold a year's worth of dollars as an emergency fund. It's like, okay, you're losing 30% a year by holding the dollars.
Not if Bitcoin falls 60%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, but
it's a bad time to be saying that.
But that's the game. Like your one makes total sense. As soon as you said it to me, is that as long as my outgoings are under my income, I'm always stacking. And that's the thing. Like I've always had this goal ever since like I got wrecked in 2018. Like fucking wrecked. I'll tell you the whole story after.
Yeah.
I got wrecked. And I had to start rebuilding. And I always had this goal. Every month I want to have more Bitcoin than I had the previous month.
Yeah.
That's a simple goal. And some months I did well and some months I didn't do so well. But I always grew my stack.
Yeah.
That was it. But get that wrong, time that wrong, you can get in a difficult scenario.
It is tough. Yeah, I agree. So I think you can find a lot of scenarios where it might not make sense to do this. And I think that's where it ties into like this not being dogmatic. It's not like something to like it's not that some Bitcoiners are lesser Bitcoiners because they're holding fiat, right? That's I don't think anyone who's claiming that is like probably a bad actor. I don't think that's a good move. I think it's more of like showing a way that, hey, this is possible for a lot of people in certain scenarios, right?
Yeah.
So in those scenarios we talked about, your expenses are less than your income. Maybe you have more regular income. Maybe you have a good amount of savings in Bitcoin so that even market volatility, you're like, I have savings. Like I can spend my Bitcoin. It's not a big deal.
There is a different responsibility that comes with having kids as well. Just there's certain things I have to think about with my kids, expenses that come at different points of the year. Like, for example, my son that's finished school now. He's probably about the same age as you. He's going to go to university.
Yeah.
I've got a new cost center that's starting for me in September when he starts university. I can't risk that. And I'm never going to risk that. So I have to partition that and I have to keep that in there. But that whole idea of outgoing and income and being under it, it's a really fascinating concept.
The thing that I can't quite get my head around is, so I'm I don't know 90+% Bitcoin, but I see that totally differently in the sense that like this is stuff I'm putting away for a long time. But you say you want to hold fiat for as little time as possible to avoid the debasement, which I understand. But like the problem with the debasement is that you're losing purchasing power. But since you started, you've lost like 70% purchasing power. Like, and that's like a mindset that's kind of hard to get my head around.
Yeah, it's really tough, and that's kind of why I think getting the why is so freaking important. It's like,
But then you're asking him to be a trader. Do you see what I
my
mean?
God, such a good point.
I do.
Pete. Such a good point. It's like I think the people, and I find
You've
this
decided not to play price.
bingo. Whenever I see, and again, I'm not like virtue signaling or anything, but like when I see hardcore Bitcoin maximalists being like, "I bought the dip," I'm like, "How did you have fiat to buy the dip? Like, how? I don't get it."
Because Arthur told us. Arthur said, have some dry powder.
Hayes?
Arthur Hayes, because at the end of the year, you're going to need it.
Yeah, I guess that's like a one. Yeah,
No, but you're right. Like I said, it goes all the way back to what I said earlier, is I've stopped trading. Buy the dip is a great meme. Yeah, we should buy the dip when we've got it. But like, I don't really usually have dry powder to buy the dip. I do, but I'm still not buying the dip because that's the amount of dry powder I've always kept on the sidelines. I'm consistent.
yeah.
Whenever I buy Bitcoin, I buy it at a time when my dry powder is at an extent where I'm like, that's money I don't need for the next year. And I just go out and I buy spot. And I've always done it like that. So I think I'm kind of operating in a very similar mentality, but with a completely different model.
The model being
Like whenever I buy, I just buy spot at that current price.
Agreed.
I have a DCA that's set up, but that's a small amount. But say the podcast is doing well, our expenses are low, we're at a decent point. I'm like, okay, I've got some spare here. I go and buy. But I never sat there with a pile waiting for the dip. Like
Right.
I never sat there waiting with dry powder just in case. But that's just who I am. Other people can time them. I know, Danny knows that I'm terrible at timing the market. So I just buy when I've got the dry powder. And if Bitcoin's at 15, 28, 40, I just buy.
yeah.
And you're doing exactly the same.
I think it's the same thing, and it's just like you said, in specific scenarios, specific situations, you've determined that your risk reward situation is like, I probably want to hold some fiat because maybe you have some fixed expenses, like a loan repayment. It's like a fixed amount.
Yeah.
Okay, you can make an argument for that. Again, not dogmatic. It's totally cool. No problems with that. I just think, and this is not my quote. This is a Laser Hodl on Twitter. He said this once. He was like,
Is he back?
I think he's back. Yeah, he's under a new name. Yeah, but he's back. What was the quote? It's like, yeah. So you've heard thanks. You've heard spend fiat, stack sats, right?
Yeah.
That meme.
Yeah.
He's like, that's a low inflation meme. It's like when inflation is low, yeah, you spend fiat and you stack sats. High inflation meme is get on zero. It's like hold no fiat. Save Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin.
Yeah, Danny, I hadn't considered inflation in this as well.
You're guaranteed losing purchasing power. Like people forget about.
So even when, so in the best way to explain that is when we're going sideways, you're looking and going, oh, Bitcoin's 20 between, say Bitcoin ranges between 18 and 23 for a year, and you're just sat there with dry powder the whole time, you should have stacked sats.
Yeah.
Yep.
And but I guess when I said debasement, I was kind of that it's debasement and then what happens because of the debasement. Like it's the whole thing. But like that's not what's happened the last 7-8 months, whatever is it?
No, we've just gone to shit.
Well, the dollar has debased. Now, of course, Bitcoin has also lost purchasing power. That's true. But I think people forget about like the massive rips that can happen, and you have no way to time that. So I guess part of the claim is like, if you're worried about the dips and you're not worried about like missing out on the massive run up, you're kind of acting like a trader. Like you're
Exactly. And if I go back to the point where I hate the question, because when it comes around, when people are like, and it's happening a lot recently, is now a good time to buy?
yeah.
I hate that question because I know it can always go further down.
Yeah.
I always just say to people, look, I don't know. I don't know anymore. Fuck knows what'll happen.
Yeah.
All I'll tell you is that when I buy Bitcoin, my intention doesn't always play out, but my intention is to hold that for at least 10 years. And I say that because I cannot see a scenario where any Bitcoin I buy now isn't worth more in 10 years. So when they asked me, I was like, They're like, I lost some money. Like, yeah, you asked me 6 months ago. I said 10 fucking years, dude.
Just to play devil's advocate, because this sounds like I'm very pro fiat.
Yeah.
But are you not being a trader anyway?
In what sense?
Like, I understand like the conviction in Bitcoin. Like we all have that conviction in Bitcoin, but you're trading your, say, guaranteed we probably think more than 9%, but whatever. You're trading that guaranteed inflation rate for the price volatility of Bitcoin right now.
Interesting. So you're basically saying like, yeah, I'm guaranteed down 9 or whatever, 9, 10, 15%. But I'm risking the downside of Bitcoin. Yeah.
And this is why I say it makes me sound really pro fiat. But like, I mean, in a short time frame, that's the risk.
I think that's really the key is like, in the example we're talking about, when you're dealing month to month and your expenses are less than your income, like I said, I'm rarely spending my Bitcoin directly. So in that case, I don't see that much, as much of a concern, unless your time horizon is less than 2 years, in which case I do agree.
I mean, Danny's a real central bank loving status cuck.
The moment I walked in, the moment I got the message, I was like, oh God, Danny.
Danny sells Bitcoin.
I don't think I've ever sold Bitcoin.
He sells Bitcoin to buy watches.
No, that's opportunity cost. I don't buy Bitcoin and buy watches.
He's spending his Bitcoin. He's spending his savings to buy watches. That's a better way of phrasing it.
Yeah,
watches don't inflate the same.
I don't see it as trading because you don't care about the price. You're just transferring to Bitcoin at the end of the month. You're following that strategy. I want more Bitcoin at the end of this month than I had at the previous month, which I think is that going back to that 10-year time horizon. In the end, who gives a fuck? You kept stacking, and in 10 years' time, you've elevated your position.
Bingo. And I think, Pete, I think why I like your show so much is you ask so many you ask questions, like an infinity amount of questions to get to what the core of like what is the first principles here, right? And I really appreciate that because my favorite episodes are when you get the most technical people on and you keep asking questions and eventually you get to like the root of the problem.
Do you know why it is?
Why?
I'm pretty fucking dumb.
I don't believe that. I think that's part of your brand, and I think it's a really good one.
No, genuinely I am. I don't get it. I still don't fucking know what an XPub is. Like I can explain it. It's like your extended public key or your other keys derived from it, but I don't. But what I will say is I'm a marketing person. We need marketeers.
Well, you need marketeers, but again, I think the way you ask questions is amazing, right? As a designer, that's my whole job.
Danny writes all my questions.
Hey, Danny.
I have a little earpiece in. He's like, Pete, say this.
Yeah. Love it.
All right, man. All right. So I get it. I get the whole strategy. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. I can't do it for my football club because I cannot risk the scenario. My football club isn't about stacking sats. It's about being sustainable. Sustainability is the most important thing, especially when income can be irregular. I have fixed cost in fiat. But I can stack a small amount and I can stack the amount over the next year, 2 years I know we're not going to spend, because if I don't spend that and that we see the price increase, that puts the club in a much better financial position. The podcast is a business. For similar reasons, I can't do the same because I have to ensure, we can't live month to month. I have to ensure that this show is here in in a year. Mm-hmm. Danny's still paid, Jeremy's still paid, Emma's still paid, Freddie's still paid, Neil's still paid, Ben's, like the whole team is still paid. I cannot risk them not being able to pay their mortgages because we live in a fiat world. But again, we do stack. But I run a strategy of making sure I have enough fiat for a year.
Yeah.
We're always a year. We're protected for a year. The worst thing happens, we've got a year. But we still stack Bitcoin. Personally, I can get nearer to what you're doing because my risks are lower on that side because it's about me.
As opposed to a team of other people with their salaries and stuff.
I mean, with me, I risk me and my kids, but like the kid risk is low because I still have that income that comes in every month. It doesn't work out, I still have it in. I can still pay the bills. My business risk is higher because there's 7 people who rely on this business, pays their wages. And the football club's even higher because there's not just me and the management team, but there's the playing team, there's the management staff, and then there's the community that I can't risk.
Yeah.
So as a small unit, it's easier.
No, that's such a good point. And maybe another way of thinking about this, and again, if you find a way that works for you, totally fine. It's not like a requirement in any way. But here's a different way of thinking about it. Maybe if you have enough savings in Bitcoin to weather the storm of 80% drawdowns, and I don't know about you guys, I don't think these 80, 90% drawdowns are going to last 3-4 years. It could be. I don't think so.
No.
So if you can ride it out with enough savings, with enough Bitcoin cash, not Bitcoin cash, Bitcoin parentheses cash savings, you can weather a storm of a year, and then just wait till it rips back up, and you're fine.
And you're stacking at the bottom, and then go back to the psychological thing. Some of us are bad at stacking on the bottom. We're better at stacking as we're going up, because we think, yeah, bull market, and we stack as we go up, and then it crashes at the bottom. And I'm not stacking now. I might go lower. Yeah.
Which is why if Bitcoin is your money, you're always stacking. And then to me, stacking sats equals saving money. To me, stacking sats is not DCA.
Yeah.
Stacking sats is saving money. It's very simple.